Amy, I'm sorry. That's what I was just going to say, Amy. You got me. Good job. We're vibing here, girl. I love it. So I graduated from the Augustana University in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a few years ago. And then I also got my master's degree at Viterbo University in La Crosse, Wisconsin. My teaching career has spanned of 27 years, and I was a first grade teacher in Rockwell City, Lytton, which is in Northwest Iowa. I taught first grade and kindergarten in Humboldt, which is also in Northwest Iowa. And then I moved down to Ankeny, where I have been a first grade teacher, a second grade teacher, and now I'm currently a literacy leader. The literacy leader at my school is very similar to a Title I teacher. So I support readers that just need that extra little boost. In July of 2001, I received my master's degree from Viterbo University. And this is a picture of my dear friend Christy and I. We were very excited to be done. And I think it's funny to look at the computer that I was working on. And that was doing my research and finalizing my paper. And my master's degree paper was actually on phonemic awareness. So it's funny how the full circle has kind of come through, and the importance of it now is even more with all of the brain research that people have done. So we do have some learning targets for this evening. We're going to understand the importance of phonological awareness and how it aligns to the Common Core. We're just going to do a brief skimming of orthographic mapping, and then we're going to look at ways to incorporate our phonological awareness into our universal instruction, as well as Tier 2 and Tier 3. And then we're going to look at some building data that improved, which was in part to the universal instruction of phonological awareness. And then we have one final learning target. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it okay.
Are you okay? Harry, it's Mary. Oh, Mary with the briefcase? Mary Swanson. Swanson. Well, host? Annual host. Annual meeting of International Preservation Society tomorrow night.
Nothing like a little humor to bring us through our day, right? So obviously Harry and Lloyd needed a little bit of practice in their phonological awareness, and that would be something that they needed. So in 2000, the National Reading Panel introduced the 5 pillars of early literacy. Those pillars are phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Tonight, we are going to focus first solely on phonemic awareness, and then we're going to look a little bit at how this connects to how our brain reads. There's a short video that does not include Harry and Lloyd that describes phonological awareness that I'm just going to go ahead and play, because I think this lady does a great job of giving the overall understanding of it.
Phonological awareness is an awareness that the words that we speak can be taken apart. And phonological referring to the sound system of language. It's something that we do auditorily. We're listening to words, we're listening to sentences. So it's not about what we're seeing, it's all about what we're hearing. Phonological awareness skills can be done with your eyes closed. Phonological awareness is a broad term that encompasses language in different sized chunks, if that's one way to think about it. So sentences can be taken apart word by word. So young children can clap or march to "I like ice cream," and we get them to really be able to take those sentences apart word by word. And once they get that concept, we can actually get them to clap the syllables in words that have more than one syllable. So elephant, giraffe. And when they can do that, we go to the next step where they have to actually break those syllables down into smaller units. Those units are referred to as phonemes. A phoneme is a speech sound. And before we even introduce kids to the fact that these sounds are represented by letters, learners, again, at a listening, at an auditory level, we want them to be able to take those sounds apart within a word.
I just thought she does a really nice job of kind of explaining the overarching view of phonological awareness. For those of you on Facebook, I would highly recommend joining the Decoding Dyslexia Iowa Facebook page, in addition to joining the Iowa Teacher Dyslexia Group Facebook page that Amy has started. But this is a great little visual of kind of the overarching definition of what phonological awareness is. So I'm going to give you just a second to read that. And then as you're finishing up reading that, I'm just going to point out that that second bullet, deciding whether words begin or end with the same sounds, the onset sound subtest in the kindergarten FastBridge definitely hits that category. And then the bottom bullet, separating words into their individual sounds, that also is assessed in our kindergarten and first grade FastBridge subtests. So it's nice that those FastBridge subtests can kind of give us that little dipstick, that little screener of how are our kids doing with the phonological awareness. I really think that last statement is very powerful. Poor phonological awareness in preschool and kindergarten is a predictor of later reading problems. So if there are any early childhood, preschool, kindergarten, first grade teachers on this call, I would just encourage you to take this to heart, or if you have children at that age or grandchildren at that age, that phonological awareness really is key. I found this visual to be helpful in order to understand that there's more to phonological awareness than just phonemic awareness. When you think back to the pillars, that one first pillar was phonemic awareness, but there are lots of other skills that come under that umbrella of the phonological awareness. And I like to think of it as these are the things that are those foundational skills that you can do in preschool and early kindergarten. And then over here in the yellow box, those are the phonemic awareness skills. We're looking at mid-kindergarten to the end of kindergarten, and then first grade. This is huge for first grade friends. That individual phoneme is so crucial. I was working with a group of kindergartners last year, and we were doing some phonological awareness activities from David Kilpatrick's 1-minute activities, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And I looked over and I saw a little friend, and this is what he looked like. Now, you would normally think that child is not engaged. I need to do something about this. I need to tell him to put his sweatshirt down. I need to have his eyes on me. But really, it's a true picture of phonological awareness activities are auditory only. If we put print to it, then it becomes visual and it becomes phonics. So this little child was actually very engaged and giving all of the answers. You just couldn't see his face. Dr. Louisa Moats and Dr. Carol Tomlin are the co-authors of Letters Training, Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. And they have this quote in one of their articles. I've linked the article down here at the bottom. It's from the Reading Rockets. And they have said that a related fact should be self-evident. Reading and writing are acquired skills for which the brain is not fully evolved. Human brains are naturally wired to speak. They are not naturally wired to read and write. Now you'll notice that I put this odd looking letters right over here. Well, the reason I did that is because I linked a information that we got from our Heartland AEA literacy consultant about letters training, more like in a module setting, kind of self-paced, and that would be a very strong piece for you to learn more about. So if you click on this, it's going to go take you to a link. So, and when it says that the brain is not wired to read, it is wired to speak, it really makes sense. When you think about toddlers, their language development. They may not be able to say words yet, but they can understand, no, no, don't go by those stairs. They can understand, bye-bye. They can understand more, I need some more food, I want to eat. So they understand language way before they would even have anything on the print. The reading and writing development just comes later. The letter is B, the sound is B. To write the letter, you put a long line down, back up a scooch, and bump around. That all comes as they develop and they get older. So our brains are not wired to read, but they are wired to speak and to hear things. We need to train the brain to do the reading and the writing. When I took letters training a couple years ago, one of the key pieces was this graphic, a 4-part processing model of word recognition. And I'm not going to go into the full in-depth of everything because you're going to have access to this after the presentation is over. But the basic idea is that all of these systems have to be connected and working at the same time in order for us to be an effective reader. So let's take this and apply those pillars to it for just a second. We have our phonemic awareness over here in our phonological processor. We have the phonics in our orthographic processor. We have vocabulary in our meaning processor, and we have comprehension in our context processor. And then that fluency is going to come in all of those areas. Those arrows go back and forth, and they're all connected. So these things have to take place simultaneously and automatically. And a lot of it happens behind the scenes, if you will. Let's take a look at what that would look like with a real word. So I can hear the word bat. I can say the word bat. That's language. If I have some phonological skills, I could even say b, a, t. So that's my phonological, that's my sound system. Once I put letters to it, now I can see that there's a B, and then there's an A, and then there's a T. Then I have to start thinking about, what does that mean? Well, there's the bat that I play with in baseball. There's the bat that could be in my attic that would scare me. And then there's one more little bat that I wanted to share. No, that didn't work. Sorry. You could bat your eyelashes. So I don't know which one I'm trying to solve when I hear it and when I see it and when I think of all these different meanings. When I attach the context to it, I will swing the bat. Now I know that this is the one that I'm trying to read about. There has been a lot of research done on the different parts of our brain and where the brain is activated during the reading process. And I am not an expert on the brain piece of it. I just kind of know surface level wise, but I found that this visual was very helpful. So again, that same example with the word bat, but now we're going to use the word red. I know the word red and I can pronounce it and I recognize it. And then I know that there's some sounds associated with that. R, e, d. And then I recognize the letters, R, E, D. All those pieces have to work simultaneously in order for us to be able to read. One of the guiding questions in a PLC is, what do we want students to know and be able to do? And one of the ways that we get that information is from our Iowa Common Core. The phonological awareness is a foundational skill, and you'll see here that it's listed as a kindergarten skill and as a first grade skill, and it's not listed as a standard in second, third, fourth, or fifth grade, which is fine that you would want them to have developed that. But I believe it's important for us to prepare our second through fifth grade teachers for those students that might not have it yet, especially when you consider what students have gone through in the last couple of years of their life. They haven't had a normal year in a couple of years now. So our second through fifth grade teachers have to have the same knowledge. This is just a quick little visual of the standards that are involved in phonological awareness in the Common Core. Not intended that you need to read and memorize it right now, but just to kind of see an overview of what those skills are. Much of the work that I have done has come from David Kilpatrick, and he has written a couple of books, but the ones that I've spent my most time on, Equipped for Reading Success, which has half of the book of 1-minute activities, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And then he's also written The Essentials of Assessing, Preventing, and Overcoming Reading Difficulties. Now, this book here on the right is more of a book that I use as a resource. I know I've got a student that's struggling with this, and I go and I kind of research it. I've tried to read that one cover to cover, and it's very deep and very intense. So it hasn't been a good read cover to cover kind of book. This book, however, has been a good read cover to cover. In fact, I've read it 3 times. I'm still not ever, I don't know everything yet. I still have questions. I still go back to it. It's kind of like my little Bible. I do get teased at my school quite often about my love and endearment for David Kilpatrick. So this summer, I actually got to meet him. He was at the Iowa Reading Conference, and our director of elementary education knew that our literacy leader team was very interested in his research, and so she was able to provide an opportunity for us to go there. He spoke about how phonemic proficiency contributes to reading proficiency, and then we stood in line and we got to meet him, and he signed my book. And these are some of my other literacy leader friends. So it was just a really good day of not only learning, but just an excitement to meet somebody. I felt very tall, very big when I was standing next to him. He's a very small man, but it was great to meet him. He was super kind, and I just really enjoyed his work. One of his big things is orthographic mapping, and he actually got a lot of his work from Linnea Airy. And orthography just means correct writing or straight writing. If you think of ortho, like the orthodontist, it's a Greek word meaning straight or correct. And graphos is a Greek word meaning writing. So orthography refers to our knowledge of the correct way to write words. When I first started reading the book, this really stuck out to me as a key piece for teaching reading. And that is just the idea of a familiar string of letters. So I'm a big Wheel of Fortune fan, and I also have this app on my phone called WordSpark, and you have to connect the letters and make words out of the puzzle. I'm much better at that game now, having learned as much as I've learned about phonics than I used to be, because I know that DLE is a common string of letters. It's a familiar string of letters, or BLE or GLE. But I know when I'm trying to solve a word, then I'm probably not going to see a JLE or an HLE, because those are not common strings of letters. When you think about NFL, you don't have to tell very many people that that's football. They might not know that it stands for National Football League, but they're going to know that it's football. USA is another familiar string of letters. It doesn't make a word, but it certainly stands for something very important. Vowel teams are another familiar string of letters. We know that vowel teams are like EE and EA, but you probably aren't going to see too many words that have that IA or the UA. Very powerful quote from Kilpatrick. I'll let you read that for just a second. Keywords, of course, immediate and effortless, and phoneme proficiency, and letter sound proficiency. So I have a little visual for my proficiency and knowledge. What's the difference between proficiency and knowledge? Well, proficiency is a picture of taco pie. That is something that I make for my family. And if you ask me for the recipe, I could tell you every single ingredient, and I could tell you every single step. You need to buy some crescent rolls, you need a pound of hamburger, you need some taco seasoning. I know all the directions. I'm proficient about taco pie. Now, I love chicken Alfredo, but I've never made chicken Alfredo before. I only order it when I'm at Olive Garden, so someone else can make it for me. I have knowledge of chicken Alfredo. I like chicken Alfredo, but I do not have proficiency. There is a video link right here to webinar that David Kilpatrick had given, Why Phonemic Proficiency is Necessary for All Readers. And I just kind of tagged you can watch the whole thing, it's great. But that 8 to 6, 7, 8 minutes is a great little place if you want to go to later when you receive these slides after our presentation tonight. Kilpatrick is also big on sight words. And this is not a debate of, is it a regular word? Is it a high frequency word? Is it a irregularly spelled, phonetically spelled? I mean, all those things that kind of float around, right? A sight word is something that you see and you know right away. You just know it. It doesn't matter if it's phonetically regular or irregular. He says that an average adult knows between 30,000 and 70,000 words instantly. So when you think about the instruction that we oftentimes do with our young readers, oftentimes we do flashcards, and David Kilpatrick is not telling you that that's wrong. However, did you have 30,000 flashcards? Because I sure didn't. I didn't have 70,000 either. There's something going on in our brains that helps us learn words automatically and effortlessly that doesn't necessarily just come from having a flashcard. He also talks a lot about identification versus recognition. So identification takes effort. It means that regardless of whether a student sounds it out, guessed, or retrieved it from memory, they can identify it. So if my boss I'm going to go on, sorry, I interrupted myself here. So then recognition is instant and effortless. It does not take a lot of thought process. So if my boss walked in the room right now, I would recognize him. I don't need anybody to help me. I don't need to wonder, I wonder who that guy is that walked in. I know that it's my boss. If I see a student at the local Walmart or Target and I see their parents, I may have to stop and, okay, they're with Billy, and Billy's parents are, what are Billy's parents' names? It might take some effort for me to try to remember the names. Obviously, when we are reading, we are teaching readers at the young ages that we want them to comprehend. That's our goal. In order for us to do that, we have to help the word recognition process be so automatic that a student can focus all of his or her mental energy on the meaning of what they're actually reading. David Kilpatrick also does a lot of talking about the phonological core deficit. There's different categories. There's phonological analysis, phonological blending, rapid automatic naming, phonological working memory, and then the nonsense words. And I'll be talking in a little bit here about how we used kindergarten and first grade universal instruction in these two areas. And then I've put the double stars here just because that is something that is assessed on our FastBridge subtests at the kindergarten and first grade level. I believe firmly that they need to have that solid nonsense word recognition before they can move on to the next progress monitoring if they're a struggling reader. An interesting pattern is that studies that train no phonological awareness show minimal reading gains. Studies that train segmenting and blending show modest gains. However, studies that train phonemic manipulation show very large positive results, and those results have been maintained for 3 years follow-ups, which is pretty powerful. One of the pieces that I reflected on was the segmenting and blending, and I believe that those pieces on our FastBridge assessments are very crucial, the segmenting and the blending. That's just the screener. We got to dig deeper to know if they have phonemic proficiency beyond just the segmenting and the blending. A couple more points from David Kilpatrick. Prevention is far more efficient than after the fact remediation. If all children are trained starting in kindergarten, potential reading difficulties can be prevented or even minimized. In Kilpatrick's 1-minute activities, he breaks the syllable or the phonemic awareness activities into 3 different subcategories: the syllable level, the onset rhyme, and the phoneme. And within the phoneme, then there's basic and there's advanced. So one of the things that I created as a visual to help with this was just some little slides. So in his 1-minute activities, he would say things like, say cupcake, and then the students say cupcake. Now say cupcake by syllables. Cup, cake. Now say cupcake, but don't say cup. And then they have to be able to produce cake. And we have actually done that universally in kindergarten and first grade this year, which has been very good to have that common language. Onset and Rhyme, I pulled up my old school electric company. They are going to demonstrate onset is everything before the vowel, and rhyme, R-I-M-E, is what comes after the vowel. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'll just give you a little taste. So that little video just kind of gives you a glimpse of what that onset and rhyme looks like. In Kilpatrick's work, he will say things like, say fall, now say fall, but don't say, and then they have to know all. There's also manipulation, say would, now say would, but instead of w, say g, and that gets the kids to change that first sound. And this is still just that auditory level. And then you've got your basic and your advanced phoneme levels. So examples of that would include, say fly, now say fly, but don't say lie. Or say hot, now say hot, but instead of t, say p. And the amount of things that kids have to do in order to do that task, they are breaking that word apart, changing this position. They are really doing a lot of that phonological awareness things that we would expect them to be able to do. There are different stages that he explains. There can be the multisensory stage, and I just have wooden blocks that my dad actually made for me and my kids helped me paint. And we use those for the individual phonemes. 95% Phonics has a great visual for the onset and the rhyme that we use for that part. I use pieces of construction paper, real high tech, for the syllable level. And then once kids have got that idea of the multisensory, then the knowledge stage, they can do it, but it might be just that hesitation for just a little bit while they're thinking about it. And then there's the automatic stage where they can do it in a snap. As we look at the pillars of early literacy, it's easy for myself to think back on my early years of teaching, and I would have said that phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics were all the same thing. As I've learned, I've identified that phonological awareness is the auditory and the phonics is the visual. However, it's important in my mind to not have them always be separate. Phonological awareness and phonics ebb and flow. So this is a picture of my son Micah playing on the soccer field. And on the left-hand side, phonological awareness, he's all by himself. I can teach phonological awareness independent. I can also teach phonics independently. But I believe it's important to teach phonological awareness and phonics as they ebb and flow. So Micah and his buddy Kyler are playing soccer in this picture, and they're passing the ball back and forth, trying to keep it away from that defender. They're going back and forth. Phonics, phonological awareness, phonics, phonological awareness. It ebbs and flows together. In the video that I shared with you earlier that we didn't watch, I just showed you that 8 minutes or so that you could watch later. David Kilpatrick presents this graphic. And down the left-hand side, you see the phonological awareness development. And then on the right-hand side, you see the word reading skill development. So I kind of think of that as the phonological and the phonics. And I used to teach kindergarten. So when I say that sometimes I think we go here too fast to that letter names and sounds, I am certainly not making any judgments about how much pressure are on kindergarten teachers right now of what they have to teach and how much they have to get their students to know and be able to do. So instead of saying that you're wrong, just think of it more as we've got to keep them both going. We got to get those letters and we got to get those sounds, but let's not forget about that phonological awareness foundational piece. On the Decoding Dyslexia website, Facebook page, sorry, not the website, there was I showed you the visual. I'm not good at knowing how to link that into this presentation. So I at least showed you what the visual looked like. Gleaneducation.com. They actually interviewed Dr. Melanie Schul. She's a professor at Vanderbilt University. And I really loved this one part that she said, most kids are going to develop reading with just the 1/4 phonological awareness skills that we teach them. That's some kids. But for a lot of kids, we got to keep filling the jar. We have to give them more phonological awareness. We have to make sure that they're getting those phonics skills as well. And we have to be able to keep filling that jar for them. So one of the pieces that when Amy asked me if I would present, I was honored, first of all, and humbled. And then I said, I really want to wait until we get some of our winter data back, because I want to be able to see if what we thought was going to work really worked, right? So what did we do? Our building level, I'm just going to let you read through those because I'm going to talk about each one of them. Okay, I'm going to keep moving because I just looked at the time. Okay, so we had building level and PLC level learning about phonological awareness. In June of 2021, I actually taught a class for our Ankeny Summer Academy, and 10 of the teachers from my building actually attended that class. And I feel like they were the spearheads. They were the people that were able to take that back to their teams and really be able to apply it. In October, I led a 3-hour professional development on one of our PD days about this same sort of topic. And that was for all of our kindergarten through 5th grade teachers, as well as our special education teachers. In our kindergarten classrooms, I go in once a week to model lessons in phonological awareness. We started this school year, thanks in large part to the brainstorm of our instructional coach at that time, Anita, who happens to be on this call. Thank you, Anita. The universal instruction at the kindergarten and the 1st grade level, I actually started the year, instead of pulling groups, I went in and taught working memory, phonological awareness, and rapid automatic naming. And I did that for 20 minutes in each classroom. We have 4 kindergartens and 4 1st grades, so I did that in 8 classrooms. It gave a great sense of common language. It gave a great sense of what do we expect the kids to be able to do. For example, that working memory. This is just a little Jamboard that I made. So they would say circle, dog, truck. And then I move these little sticky notes when it's a live Jamboard. I move these sticky notes up and I say, what's at the end? And they have to put that in their working memory. So much of reading is being able to remember when I go ed, and then I say den, that's because I'm only holding that last sound. I got to be able to hold all those sounds. And then you saw the example of the cupcake. I went in and modeled that. And then I also did rapid automatic naming. Now, the piece about rapid automatic naming that I would caution is you want to make sure that you're doing it with something that they know. So in my summer class, I had circles with colors and we all practiced. Let's do rapid automatic naming. And we said red, yellow, green, blue, yellow, purple. And then the next slide that I showed was a whole bunch of Pokemon characters. I don't know Pokemon characters. I didn't know a single one on the page. So I couldn't do rapid automatic naming because I didn't have the knowledge first. So when you're doing rapid automatic naming practice, just make sure it's something that they already know. Another piece that we did was we analyzed our current phonics resource and we found some gaps. A friend of mine said, we wouldn't expect any resource to have everything it needs. We have to go by the core, and then we have to just know what we need to do, regardless of whether that resource tells us what to or not. In kindergarten, there are 91 phonics lessons. 24 of those lessons have no phonological awareness objectives. That's 26%, and they're in kindergarten. In 1st grade, there are 88 lessons. 52 of those lessons have no phonological awareness objectives. That's 59%. And in 2nd grade, that same phonics resource had, I believe, 8 lessons that had phonological awareness as a component. So certainly not a good ratio there. Another thing that we did was we administered the PAST, which is the Phonological Awareness Screening Test. It's from Kilpatrick. It's free. It's online. It's fairly simple to give. We gave that to all of our first graders in the fall and in the winter. And then just now in the winter, we started giving it to our kindergarten friends because we felt like it was more appropriate to wait until mid-year. In the fall, at the basic phoneme level, so that would be like say fly, now say fly, but don't say f, and you get lie. 8% of our first graders were able to be proficient at that level. Through instruction in all 4 classrooms. In the winter, 78% were able to do that skill. In kindergarten in the winter, there's the syllable level and then the onset rhyme level. Those are the only 2 pieces of the PAST that we gave to kindergarten because that's the most appropriate. In the winter, on their syllable level, which they've been instructed on since the beginning of the school year, 75% were able to pass that. And on the onset rhyme, we just wanted to give the onset rhyme and see how did they do. And 55% of them were able to even pass that, and they hadn't even had too much instruction on it. We operated under 2 quotes from Wendy Robinson. She's part of our Heartland AEA. From the first day of school, our motto was, we will not wait and see, we will teach and see. And we used the data from the previous year to indicate what skills the teachers still needed to work on. So we took the kindergarten data, we gave it to the first grade teachers, and we said, hey, these kids don't have letter sound automaticity yet. You got to get going on that. So they got going on it. We took the data from first grade and gave it to the second grade teachers and said, hey, these kids aren't blending yet. You got to make sure they can blend. And so they got working on that. And then Wendy also says, we don't care about speed, but we do care about automaticity for those foundational skills. And that is very important when you think about FastBridge. It's easy to think, we got to talk, we got to read fast, we got to read fast, we got to do this fast. And it's not so much about fast, it's more about automaticity. So here's just a couple more snippets of data. I just have a few more slides left and then we'll have time for some questions. I do see that there's some in the chat and I apologize that I have not gotten to those yet. In our early reading, you'll notice here that I'm comparing a group of kids that were in kindergarten last year to a group of first graders that would be the same cohort. So look, in kindergarten, we had 58% of our kindergartners proficient on the subtest. So that's their composite score. Through the spring of last year with our kindergarten teachers, and now through the fall of this year, their winter data, we now have 74% of those friends that are proficient. Nonsense word blending. In kindergarten, those kindergartners that are in the winter of 2022 right now, they've been receiving phonological awareness instruction specifically in their classrooms. 86% were proficient on blending. That's a pretty big deal, in my opinion, when it's the first time that they've done that subtest. So then down here, I just showed you very quickly that same group of kindergartners that were up here. I'm following them now. In kindergarten, in the winter, 60% of them were proficient on blending. In the fall, that same group of kids, now they're first graders, 60% of them were proficient. In the winter, 83% of them were proficient. And then our building wide, we actually were able to have all of our grade levels improve from fall to winter. Some grade levels improved by 2%, and some grade levels improved up to 24%. A couple of options that we have used for learning modules. I feel like in the last couple of years, we've done a really good job of encouraging teachers to do learning on their own. And Iowa Reading Research Center has some really great e-learning modules. I've linked the website there and kind of given you a couple of the ones that I feel like would apply to this. And then once you get this presentation, then you will have the links to like the umbrella that I talked about. I can't give you the links to the Equip for Reading Success with the 1-minute activities in the back, but Heartland has some phonological awareness activity cards. And I asked our Heartland representative lady, and she said, yes, share them with everybody. All AEAs should have something like that, but these are similar, where they'll give you some syllables that you're breaking apart. The 4-part processor, and then this is just that chart with the phonological awareness going down the one side, the phonics going down the other, and kind of how they're all connected. So I appreciate everybody's time. I will stop talking and I will let you guys talk. Let me open up the chat really quick. Yes, Deb is asking if we will have access to the slides, and yes, you will. Amy usually sends out an email afterwards, and that's what she answered. Haven't been shared yet, but I'll send it out later. Good job, Amy. Oh, somebody else got to meet him and had his picture taken with him. David Kilpatrick. Presentations were awesome. Great question. Do you just do the Kilpatrick 1-minute drills? That's how we started the work. When I go in and model for the kindergarten classrooms on Wednesdays, I have been broadening the instruction. I used the 95% phonics rhyming from their phonological awareness kit to teach them how to look at the onset and the rhyme. And then if it's the same, then that means that the words rhyme, and to model that for them. We've also done a lot of work. So the Reading League has a great group of, they have new videos now that are Dot and, I can't remember the lady's name, but Dot is the little dog. And they do this cute little roller coaster. If you're going to do the word red, red. So I've gone into kindergarten and modeled that. I went into kindergarten and modeled how to rapidly automatically name, once we were talking about letters, now that they know their letters, most of them know their letters and sounds, how you can apply what I taught them at the beginning of the year, and now how we do that with letters. So not just David Kilpatrick, but that was kind of our springboard. Haggerty, Kilpatrick, and your own stuff to remediate high schoolers. That's awesome. Thank you for the compliment, Deborah. Ooh, I love this question. Do you recommend checking all first graders on the past, even though they are proficient on fast early reading skills? And my immediate answer to that would be yes. And here's why. There was a little first grader last year. She happens to be of a different heritage. I don't believe that, like, I don't know if another language is spoken at home. I don't know her well enough to know that, but I do know that when we gave the past to a group of first graders last year, she popped up as someone that wasn't able to do those sounds very well. And so I actually worked with her just one-on-one for 10 minutes every day. And if you looked at her FastBridge scores, she would not have qualified to meet with me as the literacy leader. So she would have gotten missed, if you will, if we hadn't done that past. And I think it kind of goes back to, let me just go back to this really quick, this one right here. I feel like it kind of goes back to this. Yes, the FastBridge does segmenting. Yes, the FastBridge does blending, but sometimes there's underlying skills that are in the background that we don't know, but they're missing. So that would be a long answer to a really, really good question. So it looks like Amy's popped the presentation in there. And if there's something that I have forgotten to share, please, let me know.
Anita, sorry.
Yeah.
You'll need to probably email that to me.
Oh, okay.
What I linked up was, I don't know if anybody, I think I got this off the main SOR page, but some teachers or professors had gotten together, and Dr. Kilpatrick helped them just make sure that these were in alignment with his work. But they have a YouTube channel like that shows, I think they did it during COVID, so the kids could do the drills with them. But I like them to watch and see how they're using the manipulatives to the scaffolding pieces. And so there's a Google Drive of like how to do each scaffolding piece. So I just thought I'd throw that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to link those even to my presentation so I can use that again. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
What other questions does anyone have? Reflections, aha moments. We always need to learn from each other with those aha moments too.
I have just an observation that kind of surprised me a little bit when I first started doing the one-on-one with high school students, was how important rhyming is. And I don't mean like the rhymes R-I-M-Es. I mean, I like
Yep.
that cat, how important that is for reading. And like we take it for granted because like when my kids were little, we read all kinds of rhyming books. You know, it was second nature to them. But my kids that are struggling, some of them are second language struggles, and rhyming is not is hard, and then they don't always understand it.
Mhm. It's true. That's a great observation. Thank you for sharing that.
I went to a 95% group workshop pre-COVID, and the presenter there had mentioned it was something that I had never thought of before. Like their kids in kindergarten were proficient on nonsense word fluency at the end of the year, but then when they started first grade, they would fall back. And she said they realized it was the manipulation piece that they were missing to be proficient at having them not fall back in the fall of first grade. So I thought that was interesting.
Mhm. Very much so. Yeah.
Has anyone else had great success with some instruction they're doing around phonemic awareness they'd like to share out?
Yes, hello. Yes, we have, well, we have awesome Anita. So she has just taught our buildings.
You
So
took her. No, I'm just teasing.
yeah, she has taught us so much, you know, I mean, just listening to you, I mean, was just like, oh my goodness, this is Anita over and over, you know? And so, yeah, so we currently, that was me who asked the question about should I be screening all of my first graders on the past? Because right now I actually did, this is terrible, but at the beginning of the year, I'm like, I want to see if this is true. You know, so I did like my highest student in my class, and he literally got, you know, all the way through it. So, I mean, it is real. It is real. Obviously, we know that. But I currently am only doing more like my struggling readers. And so then I'm also using the 1 minute David Kilpatrick drills. And then I use Haggerty for large group. So it would be interesting to see, like, you know, if all of my students are proficient with the phonemic awareness. So I'll plan to do that. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things where, but the nice thing about giving the past, I love two things about it. One is that it's got the correct and the automatic score. So it gives them credit for getting it right, but it wants that automaticity. That's one of the pieces that I really like. The other thing I really like about giving the past is that it's fairly quick. Like we used to give the PA profile, which I believe in, and I think it's a good resource, but it takes a really long time to give that depth to a student. And when you're just kind of going with that screener feeling, you kind of just want it to be quick and a little bit fast for the large group of people that you're trying to get it to. So that's great.
Yeah.
I guess I just think about how, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, we didn't even have conversations around phonological awareness at our data meetings. You know, we jumped straight to letter sounds, then nonsense words. And so I just think about how much we've evolved with our teachers just having, like you said, that common language with that. Those are the things we're hearing our teachers say now, right? Like, well, I checked their phonological awareness, or Anita, how do you think their phonological awareness is? And it's just been really cool to see that. And I think for us, I mean, don't you think, Anita, when we began to see, we would be frustrated every year. Like we did a really good job of keeping our data and then sharing that to the next year. And we would be frustrated every year by that dip. And I would say we didn't see that when we began to really fill phonological gaps and phonic and true phonics gaps. We began to be able to see that it didn't take long for those kids to be right back where they were, versus that word reading, versus that memorization. We would get them to where we wanted them to be, and then the next year it was just like, it was very frustrating. So I know our teachers would definitely tell you that's the part they feel really good about, is that the progression of skills is sticking.
Yes, definitely. Yep. And I saw a comment in the chat about the resources and techniques to get students to be more automatic with blending. Yes, absolutely. That is a great question. And I'm going to come back to it because I also want to honor what Linda has said. She said that she's had an AEA consultant tell her that rhyming is a nice to know, but not a need to know. And in my experiences, in my research that I've done, that is definitely one of those topics that some people say it's important, some people say it's not important. I am certainly not David Kilpatrick. I am certainly not, anybody like guru person. I just do what I do. I'm a geek. I'm a data geek, really is what I am. But anyway, I do believe that rhyme, and that when you think back to that 4-part processor and that language input and output, part of language is identifying when does it have the same sound at the end. And it may not be that you have to pass a rhyming test in order to be considered a good reader, but I do feel like it's an important piece of that auditory development for a child. So I'm certainly not as smart as a lot of the AEA people, so I'm certainly not trying to argue with that person, but I think it's a great question.
I didn't want to turn my camera on because, we had a snow day today. So, I didn't do anything, but I just had
We're
to,
fine.
I just had to say that I so don't believe that. And I never did believe that. And we often kind of bring that line back up. And when we're talking about phonemic awareness at school, because it's kind of frustrating to us that was told to us, because we totally believe that it is important and more rhyming should be done in kindergarten, and more, play with words and lots of rhyming books, lots of experiences with that. So anyway, I just had to throw that in.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Linda. Thank you.
We were also fortunate enough to go to see David Kilpatrick in New Orleans at the conference there. And his presentation was so good that we went to him twice. And it was so intriguing. I mean, this was a few years ago, and we just thought, why haven't we learned about this yet? And so I went up to ask questions afterwards, both times. And he was offering that book, Equipped for Reading Success, to someone else for free. And so, of course, I had to say, I'd really love to have that book. So I'm so excited who's working and get this book. And he ended up sending me one for free. So,
oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Now everybody in our building has that book too. So yes.
It was a hot commodity we were right before schools shut down in March of 2020. Anita and I sat in the first grade PLC and we said, we're going to order this book for every one of you. Our principal was on board with it. It was fine. Oh, we're going to get one of these for every one of you. And then the pandemic hit, and I'm telling you, it was like, you couldn't find one. You could not find one. So I'm going to jump back to thank you, Linda, for sharing that. I'm glad you got to meet him as well and geek out with me, right? Someone asked about the techniques for blending. One of the things that we found very effective this year is phoneme substitution cards that I've got. I'm going to write myself a note, and I will make sure that Amy has that. I have 2 things to share. I have a video of me doing it, which is not nearly as cool as the other video that I saw. I just have the letters on the card, and then you place the cards down and the kids have to blend it and read it, and then you flip it and then you blend it and you read it, and you just keep going as fast as you can. once the kids understand what blending is. But then I also saw a really great video somewhere. I'll find it. They had taken a 3-ring binder and they put the 3 phonemes there. And then that allowed them to also add that silent E in, which in my work, I've only done the CVC words. So that was really good. I will make sure that I get those added into the things that I send to Amy. There was another question. Danita, someone is requesting that you say what you just said to the teachers at her school. You let us know what school you're at and we'll get that to you. Somebody asked the question about the cohort data that I shared. Was that based on fast early literacy composite proficiency rates? So I'm actually going to share my screen again, and I'm going to go back to my presentation because I shared multiple different pieces. So let me go there really quick. So that's the past. That's not the same one. Here it is. So right here, the kindergarten of last year to the first grade of this year, this is based on their composite score. The subtests, composite score in kindergarten to the composite score in first grade. This section here was only based on the nonsense words, the blending. So I had both kind of in there. And then building wide, that was at K1, it's the composite. And then at 2, 3, 4, and 5, it was the fast bridge. So when we say that the grade levels improved by 2 to 24%, that was just on those individual pieces. Does that help clarify? Can't remember.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good, good. I also really like this comment. I think I've heard that don't wait to have them rhyme in order to move on to other phonemic awareness skills. That is a great point. That rhyming doesn't have to be the only thing that they do before you can introduce the syllables or before you can introduce the onset and the rhyme and things like that. That's a great point.
And do we think of rhyming as a manipulation task? So that would be higher up in the hierarchy of skills. And then Dr. Reed in our cohort for the dyslexia specialist endorsement, you know, she was saying, well, if they can rhyme in kindergarten, then absolutely start that manipulation with them. And then it's also an indicator if they can't rhyme, let's keep a good lookout for these kids because they could be at risk.
I like that. That's great.
Already rhyming, maybe we just start challenging them and accelerating them.
That's a great point. Yeah, I like that that hierarchy. I'm gonna jot that down too. Hierarchy of skills. That manipulation is definitely at the higher level.
Well,
Stephanie,
Anita,
thank you for the compliment.
does anyone else have any questions before we go? It was a great night, full of information. Thank you, Anita, so much for putting that knowledgeable presentation together.
Yes, thank you for listening. I said a prayer before we started with my kids and I said, I just don't want to babble.
Oh, you're so good. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And Anita will send me the PowerPoint and I'll get that sent out. And then if anybody has any other great resources to share with the group, I would be happy to share those out as well. And have a great Tuesday, rest of it, I guess.
Can't wait for March. That's
I
going to be
know,
awesome.
see you in March. Those of you who may have joined a little late, we are going to have Linda Farrell and Michael Hunter join us in March. So we're really excited that they're going to join us and they're going to talk about decodable text. Yeah,
That's awesome.
all right. Thank you so much. You guys have a great night.
Thanks, everybody, and take care.
See you next
Bye.
month.
Bye, Danita.